Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Otto von Guericke's 1672 masterwork, The Experimenta Nova Art Vocant Magdeburgische de Vacuo Spatio, stands as a monumental and profoundly idiosyncratic contribution to 17th century natural philosophy. While the spectacular demonstrations involving the Magdeburg hemispheres had achieved continental fame following the 1654 Regensburg Reichstag, their full intellectual context and philosophical underpinnings awaited this lavishly illustrated folio volume. The work is far more than a mere chronicle of experiments confirming the existence of a vacuum. It is a comprehensive, if at times deeply personal, cosmological treatise. It articulates a worldview where meticulous mechanical ingenuity serves to reveal a universe animated by incorporeal, quasi-divine forces. This essay will undertake a rigorous evaluation of the Experimenta Nova's internal claims, proceeding systematically through the 7 books of Guericke's argument. Its purpose is to analyze the coherence of his reasoning, the methodological substance of his celebrated experiments, and the unique natural philosophy he constructs upon his empirical foundations, revealing a mind operating with one foot in the world of the civic engineer and the other in the Empyrean realms of Neoplatonic cosmology. Section 1. The possibility of inane space and the world's creation. Guericke's opening book lays a scholastic and theological foundation for his entire enterprise. He confronts the peripatetic doctrine of the plenum, the philosophical assertion that nature abhors a vacuum, or horror vacui. His central claim here is that the concept of empty space is philosophically and theologically necessary. He advances this argument through a series of logical deductions derived from the nature of God's omnipotence. Guericke posits that to deny the possibility of a vacuum is to place a limit on divine power, an argument with considerable rhetorical force in his post-Reformation context. He claims that God could annihilate the world, and in its place would exist an empty space, an inane spatium. This space is distinct from the substance of God himself, possessing the sole quality of extension. His methodology in this book is almost entirely dialectical, relying on scriptural interpretation and logical proofs. He directly engages with Aristotelian and scholastic authorities, dismantling their arguments by identifying what he perceives as internal contradictions. For instance, he evaluates the claim that the sides of a vessel would have to touch if a vacuum were created within it, dismissing this as an absurd consequence of a flawed premise. The internal coherence of Book 1 rests upon its theological axioms. For a reader accepting the premise of an omnipotent creator, Guericke's chain of reasoning appears sound. For a purely materialist philosopher, it would seem a category error. His argument here is less about physical proof and more about establishing philosophical permission to seek that proof. He is clearing intellectual ground, asserting that the search for a void is a pious, legitimate activity, one that explores the grandeur of creation. Section 2. The instruments for demonstrating the void. This section transitions from abstract philosophy to concrete craft, detailing the design and construction of Guericke's air pumps. His primary claim is that he has engineered a machine capable of evacuating air from a sealed vessel, thereby producing an artificial vacuum. The brilliance of this book lies in its meticulous, procedural description. Guericke, the accomplished engineer and mayor of Magdeburg, provides an account of his instrument's evolution from early, failed attempts using wooden barrels submerged in water to the final, successful design of a brass piston pump. He details the precise mechanics: the cylinder, the piston, the leather washers, the stopcocks and the spherical copper receivers. His methodology is one of empirical refinement through trial and error. The evidence he presents for his claim is the operational account itself, a testament to practical problem-solving. He explains how he overcame leakages and mechanical inefficiencies, offering a transparent view of the inventive process. The internal evaluation of this section reveals an exceptional piece of technical literature. The claims are modest and directly tied to the apparatus. He argues that this machine performs a specific function, and the detailed schematics and operational narratives serve as compelling evidence. Critically, he establishes the reliability of his tool, a necessary precondition for the credibility of any experiments performed with it. This book functions as an epistemological anchor for the entire work, grounding the spectacular demonstrations to follow in the tangible reality of a well-made, functional instrument. The argument is simple. A void can be studied because it can be manufactured. Section 3 Experiments on the Effects of the Void. Book 3 contains the heart of Guericke's empirical argument and the source of his fame. Here, he presents a suite of experiments designed to demonstrate the tangible effects of the created vacuum, which he equates with the palpable fall atmosphere. The central claim is that the phenomena observed in and around his evacuated spheres are caused by the immense weight and pressure of the surrounding corporeal atmosphere pressing inward. The Magdeburg hemispheres experiment is the most celebrated proof. His claim is that two perfectly machined copper hemispheres, when sealed and evacuated, are held together by the external force of the air column. The evidence is the dramatic spectacle itself. Teams of horses are unable to pull them apart until the air is readmitted through a stopcock, at which point they fall apart effortlessly. Guericke's interpretation is crucial. He argues that this demonstrates the positive power of a substance, the air, rather than an attractive power of the void. His methodology is one of theatrical, larger-scale demonstration designed for maximum public impact and to overwhelm skepticism. Through sheer force, other experiments reinforce this core claim. A sealed piston, when the space below it is evacuated, is driven down with immense force by the weight of the air, a force he quantifies by hanging massive weights for it. He evaluates the properties of his artificial vacuum by showing that a bell inside an evacuated receiver becomes inaudible, claiming this proves sound requires a material medium for transmission. He demonstrates that a candle is extinguished and animals perish, concluding that air is necessary for combustion and life. The internal coherence of this section is strong. Each experiment is a carefully staged event designed to support the single, overarching thesis of atmospheric pressure. By systematically eliminating alternative explanations, he builds a powerful case. For instance, by showing the hemispheres separate easily when air is present, he argues against any inherent stickiness or magnetic-like attraction of the metal itself. The book is a masterpiece of experimental rhetoric, where each demonstration logically reinforces the Section 4 on inherent virtues and cosmic forces in the void. Having established the physical reality of the vacuum, Guericke moves into his most speculative and philosophically unique territory. The central claim of Book 4 is that certain virtues or powers, distinct from the material substance of the air, can operate within and across empty space. He argues that his experiments reveal not only the properties of the vacuum, but also the existence of incorporeal, active principles inherent in the world. This represents a significant development in his argument, populating the void he so painstakingly created. He identifies several such virtues, including the virtus conservativa, the impulse of a body to preserve itself, the virtus expulsiva, the power of a body to expel what is foreign to it, and the virtus informativa, the power by which bodies communicate. His methodology becomes more interpretive and less demonstrative. He re-examines his previous experiments through this new philosophical lens. The fact that an animal dies in the vacuum is now reinterpreted as evidence of the body's virtus conservativa being unable to sustain itself without the corresponding virtue provided by the air. The internal evaluation of this book reveals a fascinating synthesis of experimentalism and a vitalistic, almost Neoplatonic, worldview. His claims are a direct challenge to the emerging mechanical philosophy of thinkers like Descartes, which demanded explanation through contact and collision. Guericke's virtues are non-local and non-mechanical. The evidence for these virtues is inferential. He is observing effects and positing these forces as their cause. The coherence of his argument depends on accepting this conceptual leap. To a mechanist, this section would appear to be a relapse into occult qualities. To Guericke, it was the logical and necessary next step, explaining the deeper reality that the air pump had allowed him to glimpse. There is a certain intellectual elegance, a pleasing irony, in how Guericke expends immense effort to empty a space of matter only to fill it with a complex taxonomy of invisible, immaterial. Section 5 on the system of the world. In this ambitious book, Guericke extends his theory of mundane virtues from the terrestrial laboratory to the entire cosmos. His primary claim is that the same incorporeal forces demonstrated on Earth govern the motions and structure of the solar system. He proposes a cosmology that is a unique alternative to both the Ptolemaic and the fully Copernican models, though it is heliocentric in its arrangement. He argues that celestial bodies like the Earth possess a virtus directiva, which accounts for their rotation, and a virtus attractiva, which holds their parts together and influences nearby bodies. His explanation for planetary orbits is rooted in a balance of these virtues. He speculates that the Sun possesses a powerful set of virtues that interact with those of the planets, guiding them in their paths. The evidence he offers is largely analogical. He uses his ethereal virtues to explain phenomena like gravity, claiming that the Earth's attractive virtue is what causes objects to fall. He is attempting to provide a causal mechanism for phenomena that other systems described primarily through geometry. The methodology is one of grand extrapolation. He takes the principles he believes to have identified in Book 4 and applies them on a universal scale. From an evaluative standpoint, this section is the most vulnerable to critique based on later scientific developments. His celestial mechanics lack the mathematical precision of Kepler's laws or the universal rigor of Newton's later theory of gravitation. However, judged on its own terms, the book is an internally consistent application of his philosophical framework. He is providing a physics for the heavens that mirrors his physics for the earth, creating a unified, albeit qualitative, cosmology. It represents a bold attempt to build a dynamic celestial system from principles derived directly from his own experimental program, a powerful statement of the universal applicability of terrestrial findings. Section 6 on the electrostatic sphere. This section details another of Guericke's profound experimental innovations, the creation of the first electrostatic generator. The book's central claim is that a sphere of cast sulfur, when rotated and rubbed with a dry hand, acquires a powerful virtue that can be transferred to other objects. This virtus electrica, as he terms it, manifests as both attraction and repulsion. Guericke provides a detailed account of his apparatus, the sulfur cuticle or sulfur globe, and the phenomena it produces. He describes how the sphere could attract small pieces of paper and feathers, and more remarkably, how after making contact, it would then repel them. He even notes the faint crackling sounds and the pale glow produced in a darkened room, the first recorded observations of electroluminescence. His methodology is purely experimental. He systematically catalogues the effects he observes, noting how the virtue can be discharged and how it interacts with different materials. He interprets these phenomena through his established framework of mundane virtues. He sees this electrical force as another of the incorporeal powers that animate the world, a cousin to the virtues of gravity and conservation. The internal evaluation of this book is highly favourable. It is a landmark in the history of electrical science. The claims are supported by clear, repeatable experimental procedures. His observations are precise and groundbreaking, while his theoretical explanation attributing the effects to another inherent virtue aligns with his overarching philosophy. The empirical work stands on its own. He successfully isolated and began to characterize a fundamental force of nature. This section powerfully demonstrates the fertility of his experimental approach. His curiosity and technical skill led him to discover an entirely new class of phenomena, even if his ultimate explanation for it remained bound to his personal cosmology. Section 7 on meteorological and astronomical observations. The final book of the Experimenta Nova brings Guericke's focus back to practical applications and civic utility, showcasing his role as a public scientist. The principal claims in this section concern the predictability of weather and various celestial observations. He details the construction and use of his massive water barometer, a device standing over 30 feet tall that he mounted on the side of his house in Magdeburg. He claims that the fluctuations in the water level, indicated by a small floating mannequin, correspond to changes in atmospheric pressure and can be used to forecast weather with reasonable accuracy. His evidence consists of several years of observations, correlating the instrument readings with subsequent weather patterns. This is an early and impressive foray into scientific meteorology, grounding the abstract concept of atmospheric weight, proven in Book 3, in a tool of tangible public benefit. The book also includes a collection of his astronomical observations, including discussions of comets and the nature of the heavens. His methodology here is that of the patient, long-term observer. He is collecting data over time to identify patterns. The internal coherence of the section lies in its practical focus. It serves to demonstrate that the philosophical and experimental work detailed in the preceding books has direct, real-world relevance. Evaluating his claims, the water barometer represents a sound application of his principles. His assertion of its predictive power is well supported by his anecdotal records, establishing a clear link between a measurable physical quantity and a complex natural phenomenon. This final book closes the loop of his argument, bringing the grand cosmological principles back down to earth and placing them in the service of his community. In conclusion, a meticulous evaluation of the claims within the Experimenta Nova reveals a work of extraordinary depth and complexity. Otto von Guericke's achievement was not merely the demonstration of the vacuum, but the construction of an entire worldview upon that demonstration. His arguments progress logically from theological justification to technological innovation, through spectacular empirical proof and onward to a unique cosmology animated by incorporeal virtues. The evidence presented ranges from dialectical reasoning and meticulous engineering diagrams to theatrical public spectacles and pioneering electrical experiments. Each book builds upon the last, creating a unified, if highly personal, philosophical system. The work's enduring significance resides in this very synthesis. It is a testament to an era of intellectual ferment, where rigorous experimentation could coexist with and directly inform a deeply spiritual and vitalistic conception of the universe. The Experimenta Nova is the definitive record of a mind that not only emptied space of its air but also filled it with a rich and imaginative philosophical substance, forever securing its place as a foundational text of the experimental age.
We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.